This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Debbie Cooper.
And I'm Anthony Germain. We start tonight in St. John's with a campaign that aims to improve safety in the downtown.
Crime Stoppers wants to stress that you can report suspicious activity and still protect your identity. And to do that, it is releasing some anonymous tips. Here and Now's Mark Quinn with that story.
Here's one of the places Crime Stoppers wants to put up a poster that will read, "The time was 2:07 a.m. He was standing next to a row of parking meters in a black t-shirt. He was holding a hammer." Another one proposed for this location will say, "The time was 11:56 p.m. He was walking down the street with his hood up. He robbed someone." Crime Stoppers doesn't want to do interviews about this project right now. It wants to put up these posters and leave people wondering where they came from. But details about the project have been published by the City of St. John's. Now, the St. John's City Council agenda says that due to tight timelines, Crime Stoppers didn't have time to consult with the Downtown Development Commission. So what do downtown businesses think about this project? It's clear they generally like Crime Stoppers.
I think it will probably be an impactful approach to raising awareness about the presence of Crime Stoppers in the downtown.
I think it's a great tool, Crime Stoppers can be, if used correctly.
But they do wonder about what people will take away from these posters.
I think it may have a negative impact in regards to posters and the fact that, maybe crime rate is more significant.
I would worry that they might portray the downtown or make a connection in people's minds to suggest that the downtown is somehow unsafe or something like that, which it's really not.
The posters aren't in place yet. Crime Stoppers hopes to start putting them up in about a week. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The RNC has confirmed the death of a young man in Pooch Cove. A 20-year-old man was found last night after a single vehicle collision on Main Road. The man was the only person inside the vehicle. Now, police say the accident happened at around midnight, and they're asking for anyone with information to contact the RNC or Crime Stoppers.
Police are also investigating human remains found on Labrador's north coast. RCMP say they found the remains just outside Makkovik on Saturday. The remains were sent to the chief medical examiner for identification and autopsy. 18-year-old Jake Basto went missing from Makkovik in August of 2014. Police wouldn't speculate on the identity of the remains, but said Makkovik does not have a large number of missing persons files open.
The backhoe bandits struck again over the holiday long weekend. This time, thieves attempted to rob an ATM in Mount Pearl before they hit a snag. RNC officers were called to Eastern Edge Credit Union yesterday morning, and they found the ATM had been ripped from the side of the building. And get this, the bank machine was still inside the bucket of the backhoe when the police arrived. A witness told CBC News it appeared that the driver accidentally went over an embankment and got stuck. A car parked in the lot below was also damaged when the excavator landed on it. Now, you may recall there were 4 backhoe bandit attempts last winter, and 2 men were eventually charged in connection with those crimes.
Well, temperatures this weekend, not too bad once we got into Monday, but we did see some recovering temperatures today. Quite nice, 7 degrees in St. John's, 10 in Terra Nova, and then similar temperatures as you head towards the west coast. South coast a little cooler, and then up through Happy Valley, Goose Bay, only reaching a high near 4 degrees today. Now, if we take a look at the satellite radar, we can see the next system that's about to make its way across and to the island, especially as we head through the overnight tonight. A couple of special weather statements in effect, especially along the south coast and then up along the northeast coast. The Wreck House area in a warning. That's a wind warning for tonight. It looks like we could see the potential for some snow, but I'll have all those details and good news as we head towards the weekend.
A growing group of volunteers is bringing abortion counseling to this province. This in the wake of reproductive rights being rolled back in some southern states. They call themselves abortion doulas. The birthing guides are now shouldering an additional responsibility, helping women to end unwanted pregnancies. The doulas connect women with medical information as well as transportation to a clinic. They also provide emotional support for those who may not feel comfortable or safe sharing their decisions with loved ones. For the first time this weekend, doulas on the Avalon could attend an abortion workshop to learn more.
In a related story, abortion rights demonstrators took to the streets in cities across the U.S. today, protesting new restrictions on abortion passed in 8 Republican-dominated states, including an almost complete ban in Alabama.
Our bodies, our choice. Our bodies, our choice. It's very disgraceful that, the United States, we pride ourselves on being a country of freedom and of choice, and yet we're still dealing with issues like this.
One of the biggest rallies was held outside the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington. That's where a precedent was set in 1973 in the case of Roe versus Wade, giving women the legal right to choose. Protesters are concerned that landmark decision could be overturned now that the Supreme Court has a 5-4 conservative majority. This is following 2 judicial appointments by President Donald Trump. Well, here at home, there are problems with the runways at 5-wing Goose Bay, and that means some large aircraft won't be able to land. According to NavCan, all runway surfaces are deteriorating and cracking. That could lead to loose debris on the tarmac. The general manager of the Goose Bay Airport Corporation tells CBC it won't affect day-to-day traffic. And in an emergency, all aircraft can still land. But large planes, like the kind that make the trip across the Atlantic Ocean, won't be able to stop for gas in Goose Bay, at least until August. They'll have to stop at other airports instead. The Goose Bay Airport experienced a similar problem in November 2017. In that case, all traffic was grounded for several days.
Well, the runway problems didn't deter some special visitors yesterday. Several planes from the Second World War made their way through the airport. The Douglas C-47s are on their way to Normandy to mark the 75th anniversary of D-Day. The Goose Bay Air Base was built as a jump-off point for troops and supplies during the war, and today, following that route is still the best way to go.
Reason we're doing it, because it's part of the original route that these airplanes went across the Atlantic. This was the summer route. We're not quite summer yet, but this is the northern route that they took.
These airplanes are here because of the war in a way, and we are still using them today, and it's definitely the safest way. And for these airplanes, the only way, because obviously they cannot fly a straight-through flight. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. When I never seen personally plane like this before, so it's quite interesting, and especially very interested for kids because they want to ride on and see what's going on inside.
What do you think of the plane?
It's epic.
It's epic?
Yeah.
What's epic about it?
Look, it's cool.
There's a lot of old spirits and old souls around that remember these quite well, and that we were able to participate in this sort of situation here at this event here in Goose, basically with the same infrastructure possibly, is amazing.
What a great piece of living history. Yeah. We're still acknowledging the anniversary of D-Day, and then have all these wonderful aircraft come through. It's special.
I've come from a military family, dad, 2 grandpas, one of them served in World War II, so it's pretty cool getting to see what they did and kind of getting to relive it all.
On June the 5th, we'll fly across the channel as a formation of 30 C-47 and DC-3, because we will also meet the European contingent over in England, and we'll fly across the channel to commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Every time I crawl in the seat of this airplane to fly, I think of a 21-year-old, 22-year-old maybe, flying this airplane across the English Channel at night with 29 paratroopers on the back, younger, scared to death, in the dark, towing a glider, and green light comes on and they jump out in the dark. I mean, that is, and they did it at like 700 feet. It's just, I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm honored.
700 feet,
Wow.
I just realized that. Part of living history,
Yeah,
as somebody commented.
It makes you think of a lot of those Second World War movies too, like A Bridge Too Far with all these aircraft. Very
Fabulous.
cool.
If I were a lobster, where do I want to be? Like, do I want to live in that cave, or do I want to live in that nice, like, living room? I'm trying to make a living room for a lobster here, so.
Concrete coral reefs? Why, these scientists are building living rooms for lobsters and cozy nooks for codfish in Placentia Bay.
Oh, all will be revealed after Ashley's weather.
East Coast Trail Association was born 25 years ago. It was 1994, and this was the start. I probably shouldn't have worn this on the hike today, but at the big Trailraiser hike on Saturday, June 8th, you can do the East Coast Trail your way.
Join CBC NL at the annual Trailraiser hike in support of the East Coast Trail Association. The fun starts in Bay Bulls with 5 hikes to choose from.
It's skipping.
Register online at eastcoasttrail.com.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order your tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
I'm going to buy Zach another strap.
Anyway, it's nice to see him
great.
out there.
Yeah, having a bit of fun.
A lot of people looking forward to that walk. It's, you know, for a great cause.
Yes.
You're going to be on the walk,
I am going to be on the walk, yeah, that's the plan.
Excellent.
Yeah, hopefully the weather holds out, but
That's
no
up
matter
to
what,
you.
it is, you know, it is up to me, that's true. But no matter what, it's always a beautiful hike. That's what I'm noticing, even if it's gray skies.
Great spot.
Yeah, totally.
So, oh, that's right. We're going to have a look at something that never grows old. Isn't that fantastic?
Is it calving or is it turning?
It's turning, I believe.
And
look at that now.
let's see where we can, where it
What an
came
image.
from.
Where did this come from?
I believe it was Little Bay Islands, but
Okay.
yeah,
so Kevin
Kev
Parsons obviously sent that in.
And we note not the MHA.
That's right. enough of the election. There you go. You see again. Now we caught that iceberg rolling in Little Bay Islands.
Yeah, I shared it with me this morning on Twitter. It was kind of a cool thing to wake up to. I haven't seen that happen yet.
Yeah, said what a rush. Looks like it got very close, hey?
Yeah.
Right by the
Wonderful.
edge.
Yeah, there were lots.
Speaking
All
about
right, here's
something
an amazing
else,
sight.
close.
This is from the Bayvert Peninsula, actually. This morning, the town of Fleur-de-Lis was warning residents to be on the lookout for this guy. What a great shot. Polar bear roaming across the harbor. I wouldn't want to come across him too close.
No, local wildlife called in, but before that, Sal Walsh captured these photos, obviously from a safe distance.
Pause.
Incredible, magnificent animal.
Yeah, the residents obviously reminded to stay alert, keep your pets secure, and naturally do not attempt to approach the bear. It's not a good idea.
Wouldn't have to tell me that twice.
No. No, not at all.
So we saw the white icebergs, we saw the white polar bear, and what's this about snow?
Wow, just jump right into it. Yeah, it's looking a little messy as we head through the next 24 to 36 hours. Temperatures today, though, let's enjoy what we have left. We'll see what they were today. 10 degrees for most of central and towards the coast, and then St. John's reached 7 degrees. And then those cooler temperatures up through Labrador between 4 and 6 degrees, a little bit cooler as you head towards the coast. So if we take a look at the satellite from today, did see a few peaks of sunshine in the early part of the day, and now that has since ended, and we're seeing plenty of cloud cover across the board. And if we put in that radar, you can see we're starting to see that rain move in, and it's going to get heavy as we head through the night tonight. And we do have Environment Canada has issued a special weather statement, and it's the majority of the island, except essentially the interior and along the west coast. And the Rec House area looking at gusts near 110 kilometers per hour this evening, and then they should ease after midnight as the system continues to track a little bit further east. So here's a look at that low. You can see it's just skirting the southern half of the island. So we're looking at that rain heavy at times tonight, and then eventually as we wrap around some colder air, it does look like it should change over to snow. Towards the coast though, you're probably going to stay as rain. Closer to the inland is when we're going to start to see that snow, and then for parts of the island or parts of the Avalon as well. So here's your temperatures overnight tonight, anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees. That's why we can see that potential for flurries or light snow. The most it looks like will be 5 centimeters, and that will be inland or at those higher elevations. Otherwise, a trace, maybe 2 centimeters of some rain mixing in with that snow overnight tonight. St. Anthony sitting at 1 degree. Up through Labrador, you're going to stay messy as well, either rain or snow as those temperatures sit between 1 or 2 degrees. Not anticipating any accumulation though as we head through the night tonight. Now that low moves away. We do still have one off the coast, and those two are essentially coming together and going to see them essentially stall over the next couple of days. So we're getting back into that northeast flow. Those winds are really going to pick up through the afternoon tomorrow. And then again, we're looking at that potential for either rain or snow through the day. And then same for southeastern portions of Labrador. Otherwise, high pressure dominates. So we should see some clearing for most of western and central Labrador through the day. And then you can see it just continues. We're going to continue to see that northwest or northeast flow rather, with that low sitting off. So rain, drizzle, fog expected along with that potential for some wet snow as well. So here's a look at those temperatures, very much cooler than what we saw today. So anywhere from 2 to 3 degrees along the northeast coast, a little bit warmer down along the south coast of Marystown, 8 degrees tomorrow. Those northwesterlies around 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. And then we're looking at temperatures between 3 to 5 again as we head towards central. And again, either rain or snow through the day. If it is snow, it'll be a wet snow. And then we're looking at temperatures. The best place to see the sun will be for the southwestern portion of the island, 10 degrees-ish. And then up along the northern peninsula, we'll get into that mess as well. A little bit warmer though, somewhere between 3 to 5 degrees. Southeastern Labrador, same thing. And then as we head towards the west coast, or the western portion of Labrador, you're looking between 7 and 8 degrees. That snow, if anything falls, will be in the morning, and then you'll see that sunshine. So let's look at your forecast. The good news is towards the weekend, it does look like temperatures are going to bump right up into the mid-teens. We'll have all those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Placentia Bay getting some TLC, apparently. The federal government is going to spend $4.7 million through its Coastal Restoration Fund.
Now, the money is being used to restore fish habitat, including the laying of artificial reefs. And that's where CBC's Todd O'Brien picks up the story.
Late June, and we're heading down Placentia Bay to North Harbour. On board, a team from the Marine Institute, on their way to lay an artificial reef. Made of concrete, these were created a few months earlier, using molds that came from Florida. You've got to pour, muck it around, and let set.
I hope it will work.
This one is called a reef ball. Scientists hope it'll attract young cod and perhaps wolffish. This one is called a layer cake, layers of concrete for lobster to hide and safely molt.
If I were a lobster, where do I want to be? Like, do I want to live in that cave, or do I want to live in that nice, like, living room? I'm trying to make a living room for a lobster here. So,
Arnaud Lebris is a research scientist. He created this project.
There is different layers, there is different thickness, and the different size of holes and thickness of the layer will basically encourage potentially different size of lobster.
The reef balls and layer cakes are being lowered into the waters off North Harbour, Placentia Bay. This to help rebuild the cod and lobster fishery. Lobster went into decline in the 1990s in this area, says Lebris. Then, in 2007, this was the first area European green crab were recorded, an invasive species that's damaging fish habitat today. The reef will be placed in an area fish harvesters say should be a good spot for lobster to live. It's being sunk in water of around 15 meters, a depth that will hopefully avoid green crab.
We will never get rid of green crab here. I mean, it's very unlikely. We hope and we think we will be able to control the population to some level, that the ecosystem will be able to rebound from that, and then to kind of control by itself the population of green crab.
The goal today is to place the reef balls and layer cakes a few meters apart, to build a habitat or neighborhood for the sea creatures, a small cluster in a vast ocean.
The best case scenario, to see lots of lobster in the reef and lots of baby cod. And personally, one of my big hope is wolffish is an endangered species, and we know they like this kind of holes and they like to hide, you know, in some sort of like cave. And so hopefully they will discover that habitat. Try to bring the other one.
With a bit of maneuvering, the reef takes shape. Eventually, there'll be 5 new reefs in Placentia Bay. In all, 50 reef balls and layer cakes. But will it all work?
He's going in.
That should become evident over the life of the 5-year project. But there are some encouraging signs. Fast forward to December 2018, and one of Lebris's North Harbour layer cakes has a visitor. Perhaps a good sign of things to come. Todd O'Brien, CBC News, North Harbour, Placentia Bay.
Wow.
Yeah, well, for a variety of reasons, Debbie. Anything that increases the lobster population is good news. Not just for harvesters, but for certain foodies.
Yes, I know you love it, so do I. Yeah. But anyway, that's very encouraging.
Great science story. Yeah.
There is absolutely no doubt that all the teams that participated completely underestimated the effect of the Atlantic here.
His uncle was part of the team that first flew non-stop across the Atlantic 100 years ago.
And now Tony Alcock is visiting St. John's for himself to see where it all began.
Welcome back, everyone. 100 years ago this month, two pilots took off from a small airstrip in St. John's and flew into history. John Alcock and his navigator Arthur Brown won the race to become the first to successfully fly non-stop right across the Atlantic Ocean.
An amazing accomplishment. As Here Now Stephen Miller reports, Alcock's nephew recently visited St. John's and saw for the very first time the city where his uncle began his trip into history.
For Captain Tony Alcock, it is the realization of a lifelong ambition. At the age of 75, he is finally standing at the starting point of the historic flight by his uncle, Sir John Alcock. Today, the site is marked by a monument at the Royal Canadian Legion in the center of the city on Blackmarsh Road. But 100 years ago, this was a small dirt airstrip and the starting point of the first ever non-stop flight across the Atlantic. His 35 years with the Royal Air Force has taken Alcock many places, from Iraq to Alaska, but it hasn't landed him here, where the stories that would inspire his own aviation career began.
You still get a feel of openness here. And I'm getting the feel of the weather conditions, because there is absolutely no doubt that all the teams that participated completely underestimated the effect of the Atlantic here.
It was a daring flight, the unpredictable weather of the Atlantic being faced through the open cockpit of a modified World War I bomber, with none of the modern-day safety equipment pilots now have. As Captain Alcock looks out at the narrows where the plane flew through a century ago, he speaks of the importance of the relationship between his uncle and his navigator, Sir Arthur Brown.
Standing together, equal with each other, was a tremendous example to our young generations on how teamwork can bring riches of success.
While in St. John's, Alcock took in the newly opened exhibit on the transatlantic race at the Admiralty House Communications Museum. Although he spent his life researching his uncle's career and hearing stories from his father, he still learned a thing or two, including his uncle's rumored romance with Margaret Carter, the daughter of a wealthy banker who took a keen interest in the race.
My uncle was 27 at that, well, 26 at the time, and so it's possible that there might have been a relationship there. He didn't have any girlfriends, as far as we know, but he certainly had a lot of admirers.
While in town, Alcock shared some of his knowledge at Memorial University, his way of keeping the legacies of history's daring aviators alive for future generations. Stephen Miller, CBC News, St. John's.
That's one place I haven't visited yet. Have you been at the museum?
No, but Zach Gowdy did a great story when they opened it all up.
He did, indeed, and it piqued my interest, so I'm definitely going to have to go.
No, I think they're going to have a lot of visitors.
Yeah, and it's next month is the big month.
That's right, yeah. All right, another news now. Last year's diplomatic standoff between Saudi Arabia and Canada over human rights had an immediate impact on Saudi students in Nova Scotia, with many of them ordered back to the kingdom to cut short their studies and training. But for Canadian institutions facing future financial loss, it also became a wake-up call to expand their base of international students. Kayla Hounsell reports.
Among the crowd at this Halifax mosque are university students from Saudi Arabia. We don't know who they are because they're afraid to identify themselves for fear of what their government might do to their families back home. They were ordered out of Canada last summer.
Some of them, they were really sad about that. They were about to finish, they settled here, they have been here for years, they know the city, they have their homes, their cars, their belongings, everything.
9 months later, CBC News has learned many of the students stayed or left and came back.
It took us a while to even absorb it. Then I went into depression.
This Saudi student, whose identity we are protecting, was on a full scholarship from the Saudi government. He's managed to stay by paying his own way.
We're broke. We used everything we have. I would say that was the hardest period of my whole life.
But many students were able to continue without losing their Saudi scholarships. Medical students specifically were allowed to continue, as were students whose studies were nearly complete. There are still about 5,000 Saudi students studying at Canadian universities, down 2,500 from before the diplomatic crisis.
Over the ensuing weeks, through really good, effective dialogue, we had the opportunity to make sure the worst did not occur.
For universities, those students mean money because international fees are so much higher than Canadians pay. Mount St. Vincent, for example, took a $900,000 revenue hit. Others, like Dalhousie and McGill, which have med schools, were less affected.
The big thing that did for us is it exposed just how vulnerable we are.
Teaching hospitals rely heavily on Saudi residents to provide vital patient care. The Saudi government is not expected to sponsor any new students when current students graduate. So in Nova Scotia, for example, the province is funding new resident positions for Canadians. And universities are trying to attract students from other countries to help close the gap and reduce the risk.
It's a political issue.
This Saudi student calls his government's decision childish and irrational.
Resolve it in any political way you see, but don't involve students and people who are trying to study and make a living, and we have nothing to do with all of this.
He says he had planned to go home after completing his education, but now hopes to stay in Canada. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Veteran of 6 previous elections, Smallwood claimed he was still premier because the government hadn't been defeated. Frank Moores played it for what it was worth. It was the Conservatives, not the Liberals, he said, who deserved the government.
Another election for the history books.
Up next, we dip into the past and take a look at that other time a minority government left the other side more than frustrated after election night. Stay with us. Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, it was one for the history books. Last week's provincial election resulted in a Liberal minority government, only the second since Confederation. So here again are the standings as of last week's election. The Liberals now have 20 seats, the Progressive Conservatives 15, there are 3 New Democrats and 2 independents. It is a vastly different political landscape today than in the fall of 1971. Joey Smallwood fought to keep power against PC Frank Moores, who led a fierce election campaign. So let's take a look back at an excerpt from a documentary by our colleague Doug Leto.
As election day turned to night, people waited for the verdict. The turnout at the polls had been massive. 235,000 people voted, close to 90% of the electorate. The Liberals and Conservatives planned big bashes in St. John's, but the biggest Liberal of them all didn't show up. Joey Smallwood drove around St. John's all night listening to the results on radio. Apparently devastated by what he heard, Smallwood drove back home without talking to party supporters or the press. Next morning, people could hardly believe the news. It was a virtual tie. The veteran of 6 previous elections, Smallwood claimed he was still premier because the government hadn't been defeated. Frank Moores played it for what it was worth. It was the Conservatives, not the Liberals, he said, who deserved the government. The newspaper headline writers agreed. The standings showed how close it really was. Frank Moore's Conservatives were in front with 21 seats. Joey Smallwood's Liberals had 20. Tom Burgess held a seat in Western Labrador for the New Labrador Party. But several of the seats were so close, recounts were necessary. The jockeying started.
Mr. Smallwood, I'm sure, would like to play games for 4 more years. I don't think he should be allowed to. I think it's very, very important that he do the decent thing and resign.
We are the government, we're the Queen's government, and we will continue to be the Queen's government, be it a day, a week, a month, until we are replaced by another administration.
Conservatives were furious. Moores flew to St. John's from his seat in Cornerbrook to join a motorcade to Confederation Building. The trip to the seat of government was purely symbolic, to make the point they, not the Liberals, should be in office. But 23 years in power had earned Joey some loyalty. For the next 3 months, the politicians had center stage. People of the province were taken on a roller coaster ride, sometimes exhilarating, oftentimes confusing and frustrating, but never dull. Election night was barely over when John C. Doyle, industrialist and friend of Joey Smallwood, started calling on newly elected Conservatives. Doyle had convinced Joey to back his plan for a controversial linerboard mill at Stephenville. The government came through with loan guarantees and cash. The Conservatives threatened to kick Doyle out if they came to power. That convinced Doyle the only way to keep the mill was to keep Joey and the Liberals in power. In the days following the election, several Conservatives were contacted by Doyle and others. John C. Doyle said he did meet with several Conservatives immediately after the election, but he claimed they were courtesy visits not intended to get people to change sides. But that's not the way New Labrador Party leader Tom Burgess saw his meeting with Doyle.
Then Doyle saying, "Can I see you?" I walk over in the corner with Doyle. He said, "Look, we got $1 million lying around that I could let you have, you know. I mean, nobody's got to know about it."
Both parties wanted Burgess. Burgess wanted special consideration for some long-standing Labrador grievances, and he was talking tough.
I'm the guy who's auctioning the whole thing now, and I'm the guy who calls the shots, and I'm the one who asks for specific things, and I haven't seen a refusal from either party yet.
Well, it's kind of interesting how MHA from Labrador figures into both post-Confederation minorities, right?
And our last week one, for sure,
Yeah.
sure. There were lots of twists and turns in the 71 election. I don't know if we're going to see that
Right,
so
or
much.
how long the government lasts. Now,
Yeah.
a couple of months later, of course, Joey resigned and Frank Moores formed the government.
Yeah, Tom Burgess, he finally joined the Liberals, but only after they'd given up the government. People said he didn't play his cards right. Moores went on to win a spring election
big.
of 72, huge. The Liberals were out for 17 years.
Yep. See what's ahead in 2019, 2020.
We'll keep our eyes peeled.
All right. In international news now, a Canadian delegation is in China this week, pushing for the release of 2 Canadian men who are accused of spying. But as the Prime Minister acknowledges, relations between the two countries have been difficult for months now.
China is playing making stronger moves than it has before to try and get its own way on the world stage. And Western countries and democracies around the world are pulling together to point out that this is not something that we need to continue to allow.
China was outraged when Canada detained Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou in December, this at the request of the United States. She is currently fighting extradition to the U.S., which accuses her of violating its sanctions against Iran. Last week, China formally arrested Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig after detaining them for months. Experts believe it's unlikely that they will be released or that relations are going to improve until Meng's case is finally settled.
A wildlife fire in northern Alberta is out of control and now rated at the highest possible danger level. It forced 4,000 people to evacuate their homes. Recently elected Premier Jason Kenney is pledging full support from the government.
Wildfire season is a long and tough battle every year, and we need to be prepared for the long haul this summer. So I'm incredibly proud of the efforts of Alberta's wildfire firefighters and first responders. I want to assure them and the residents who have had to flee their homes that the Government of Alberta has their back.
Evacuees from the town of High Level have relocated to Slave Lake. 750 people from the Bush River Reserve also needed to leave their homes. It could take up to 5 days before residents are allowed to return. No injuries or damaged houses have been reported, but Kenny says as the weather continues to be dry and windy, the fires will likely worsen.
That brings back memories of Fort Mac. Now to our next story. It sounds like something out of a sitcom, but not that funny. A story about where someone books a night at a hotel and winds up being charged thousands of dollars. And as we hear from the CBC's Marina von Stackelberg, that's exactly what happened to a Manitoba man who booked a room using the online website Expedia.
Thank you for calling Expedia Rewards Gold customer support.
Justin Smerchansky is back on hold, trying to figure out how Expedia charged him $6,000 for one night at a Holiday Inn.
This is ridiculous. This is a one-night stay in Willmar, Minnesota. You know, this isn't Vegas.
Smerchansky runs a business just outside of Winnipeg. He was headed to the Minnesota town to meet with clients. He's used Expedia dozens of times, so he logged on to reserve a hotel for the next day. Expedia listed a room at the Holiday Inn for $208 a night, 2 queen beds, complimentary breakfast. He was in a bit of a rush. He made the purchase.
I've stayed there before, so I just went ahead and booked, didn't think anything of it.
But when he printed off the receipt, he noticed he'd been charged more than $3,100 in what was listed as taxes and fees, and $2,800 in what Expedia called a property fee, making his total bill for a one-night stay at the Holiday Inn more than $6,000.
So I thought it must be a mistake, and I gave Expedia a call right away to try to get it corrected.
But instead of help, he says Expedia reps gave him the runaround for days and didn't seem very fazed by his bill.
Just have been really frustrated with the answers I've gotten from Expedia.
Now his credit card company is involved. CBC News reached out to Expedia days ago for comment. Only after our story was published did we receive a response. The company says it's still looking into what happened, but it has issued a full refund and apologized for the issue. Meanwhile, Smerchansky says staff at the Minnesota Holiday Inn told him he wasn't the only one. At least 2 other people called them, saying Expedia had overcharged them too. A spokesperson for the hotel chain says Holiday Inn is not involved in billing when customers book through third-party sites like Expedia. It recommends reserving directly through the hotel instead. Smerchansky says he'll never use Expedia again. He's warning others to check the fine print. And he didn't end up staying in his $6,000 hotel room. He checked in next door at the Best Western. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It's an unfortunate finish to a wild couple of months to end the year.
We've set out for one goal, and that's to win a championship. And we've gotten ourselves into the situation where we have a chance to play for it now, and now we got to prepare.
The Newfoundland Growlers are headed to the Kelly Cup Finals.
But on the basketball court, the season has ended for the St. John's Edge. Cease Hare has a look at 2 local teams. That's right ahead.
Well, welcome back. I'm Anthony. This is Ashley Broadweiler.
It's been a while. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, how
so
are
nice
you?
to see you both
It's
in person.
great to have you back.
I have been watching, of course. A few things happened while I
Yeah.
was gone.
You have about
like an election.
17,000 emails to respond to, so that's your job now.
Yeah, it was very nice to be missed, and I want to give a big shout out to Carolyn, who did yeoman's service here, and big thank you to her.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get to the weather, we have lots of people sending us stuff this time of year. Spring must be here.
Spring is here. Yeah, check this out. Ronald O'Toole shared this video with us. It's a whale feeding in Holyrood.
In slow motion
Yesterday.
for your entertainment pleasure.
I was so excited when I saw that video because that means they're here. At least one is here.
Apparently, he was corralling herring. I heard it in the ether somewhere earlier today.
Nice and
which
close,
makes
too.
sense. Yeah. So it's.
Well, it's always exciting, the first whale sightings of the season.
Yeah, I was out hiking yesterday and we thought we saw one, and then we watched for a while, and there were about 7 of us, and none of us saw it again. So we're like, maybe it wasn't a whale.
It's possible, though.
It is very possible. Yeah.
That's great.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see it in real life.
Yeah.
So we are looking ahead a bit today, or at this weather forecast now.
Yeah, we're gonna just do a quick look at tomorrow's forecast just because there is some weather on the way, just in case you missed it a little bit earlier. So temperatures are gonna be a little bit cooler, so we're, especially along the northeast coast, anywhere from 3, maybe 4 degrees. To the south, though, you'll warm up quite nicely as you get away from that onshore flow, between 8 and 10 degrees. And again, you're looking at, or we're looking at that risk of some snow towards the early morning hours, and then again in the evening as those temperatures drop yet again. As far as accumulations go, somewhere between a trace to 5 centimeters, and that will be inland, and the higher elevations will pick up the most amount of snow. Otherwise, tomorrow between 7 and 9 degrees for most of the of Labrador. Except along the coast where it'll be a little bit cooler. So if we look a little bit ahead, that system that I was talking about, that low pressure system, still going to be stalled off the coast. So we're still looking at that northeast flow, and then with that onshore drizzle, fog possible through the day on Thursday. And then eventually it will pull out, but not before we start to see, or could see, some more snow into the afternoon, at least wet flurries anyway. So those temperatures are going to be a little bit warmer, 5, 6 degrees, again warmer along the south coast, somewhere between 10 to 12 degrees with plenty of sunshine. And then up through Labrador, because of the ridge of high pressure, temperatures should recover quite nicely, 10 to 15 degrees, a little cooler up through Nain, but plenty of sunshine. And then again, coastal Labrador will see those cooler temperatures, about 3 degrees. For you. Now, Friday morning, there's that low. As it continues to pull out, you're still going to see that potential for some flurry or some drizzle and cloud cover along the northeast coast. Otherwise, things should clear out, and this is going to give way, hopefully, to what looks like a pretty lovely weekend, at least the first half of it, and into Sunday before this next system starts to roll in. But the weekend does look quiet, and because of that, temperatures should bump up quite nicely. So here's a look at the next 5 days. So once we get through these cooler temperatures, there is relief in the forecast. So Friday, some showers in the morning and then clearing skies. Look at that, 17 degrees is possible for Saturday, and Sunday looks like 15 with plenty of sunshine. Those temperatures overnight too, not cool at all, somewhere between 4 and 6 degrees. So that's certainly good news there. For central Newfoundland, essentially the same forecast. So windy conditions tomorrow, continuing into Thursday, and then we clear out quite nicely. 18. This is probably a little bit lower than what we're actually going to see. Those temperatures could bump up as we head through the next couple of days. Western Newfoundland, 7 degrees tomorrow. Again, some rainy conditions into Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday looks beautiful. Sunday might see a chance of a few showers as that system moves in, but that will be late day and 15 degrees. And then up through eastern Labrador, 9 degrees tomorrow, and then double digits right as we head towards the weekend. Then that gets a little bit messy as far as rain goes. Then same thing for western Labrador. 7 tomorrow, 15, 16 degrees as we head towards Saturday. And then Sunday looks like rain, but still quite nice at 9 degrees. So let's look at your forecast. I'll have your weather photo coming up.
Well, 2 very different worlds at Mile One Center for the professional sports teams operating out of St. John's.
Yeah, one team is out of its championship race, while the other is just gearing up for a run at the big prize. Here now, Cease Here reports.
A bittersweet ending to the basketball season for Newfoundland-born St. John's Edge player and acting general manager Carl English. The team was knocked out of the championship round against Moncton, and despite the way things ended, English says the team's second season in the league was a great one. And as for his future with the team, that's still up in the air.
I don't know.
Will you be back?
I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Right now, I'm just take some time and get recovered from the injuries I suffered this season, and figure out, you know, take some time with my family and figure out the next step.
Shakes loose, fires and scores!
Meanwhile, it's a completely different story for the other team that calls Mile 1 home.
5 seconds to go. Stand proud.
Hockey fans are on a high. The Growlers won big on the weekend. They beat the 2012 champs, the Florida Everblades, Saturday night with a shutout on home ice. Florida went down in 4 straight games in the series.
We haven't had that.
Bonavista-born defenseman Adam Pardy bears the scars from Friday's game. He says their team's speed and goaltending got them past Florida.
Everybody's been contributing, and Gartz has just been lights out. He's given us a chance to win every game, and you know, at times when we didn't play so well, he was right there. You look at, I mean, Game 5, it wasn't our best game. Our first period, definitely not. Our second period, definitely not. We gave up way too many chances, and you know, he stood in there and he shut the door.
Either Tulsa or Toledo will be their next opponents. Now, those teams are still slugging it out. Game 7 in that series is Wednesday. Then on the weekend, the Growlers are in the Kelly Cup Finals. For the first 2 games in the series, the Growlers have home ice advantage here at Mile 1 Center in St. John's. On Saturday and Sunday, both games are at 7 o'clock. Cease here, CBC News, St. John's.
All right, well, the Growlers you can still cheer for, which is great. A lot of hockey fans. They've had a great season as well with lots of fans. But basketball?
Yeah, it's obviously the fans and the team wanted to go much farther than they did, but the fans really love them.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, there's always next year, and we'll see what happens with Carl. Hopefully, well, if he's not playing, hopefully
He'll be coaching.
he's involved.
He'll still be involved somehow as managing, or they'll find some role for him, no doubt.
Yeah, they did well.
Yeah.
So, if you are an NBA fan, you'll know there's twice as much talent in one basketball family than most others at the moment. Brothers Steph and Seth Curry play for opposing teams. They battled each other in a conference final for the first time on Saturday. A 6-time All-Star, Steph led his Golden State Warriors to the win, ousting his younger brother's team in the process. That didn't stop the pair from exchanging a little love and their jerseys. The two are sons of former basketball great Del Curry.
Well, did you guys happen to catch the sunset last night?
I missed it. Wow.
It was a beauty. And this is a great capture of it there. I'll tell you where this specific photo was taken and who took it when we come back.
What a gorgeous shot we saw
Just
as we went to commercials.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that again. Beautiful picture there. Thank you so much for sending this photo in from Balleen.
Balleen, nice spot.
A beautiful shot there. Thank you so much. It honestly did look like the sky was on fire last night. I looked out quickly and saw that and watched it for a little while, but Scott Pike captured this gorgeous photo over the water, so thank you so much for sending that in.
You got to get out there this summer, Ash, and go cod fishing. I noticed the cod schedule, the summer fishery, the recreational fishery schedule and days came out all these weekends.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I have so many things to do this summer. Yeah, I want to fit it all in.
Go out to Cape Spear and go down the East Coast Trail there. Fabulous spot for seeing whales.
Oh, perfect.
They come in so close to shore, you can hear them blowing and singing, and you've got lots of experiences ahead of you this summer.
And a tour guide.
And a tour guide.
Welcome back.
Thank you all, and we will see you tomorrow.
Good night.